Hello, and welcome to an AMA video, where today I hope to explain what DID is and how it works to friends and family. Let's start off by answering for anyone new to the topic, what is DID?
DID stands for Dissociative Identity Disorder. It is a condition usually caused by unresolved trauma or stress that causes your ego state to split, and you end up with two or more unique personalities. The host remains pretty much the same, but they begin coexisting with a new personality known as an alter.
DID can result in dozens of personalities, depending on the trauma or traumas if plural. Our system has two, the host and an alter. Alea here is my alter. She and I are the only ones in our system, fortunately, which makes it a lot easier most of the time, I think. Question 1. Have you ever seen a specialist? If not, do you intend to? Why or why not? Yep. Saw a specialist a total of twice. She was nice. I talked about my whole life story for about what felt like 15 minutes, but it's actually probably close to an hour. After the second session, she admitted she thought she knew pretty quickly what was wrong the first halfway through the first session, but has rule not to diagnose the first session. She told me about DID and explained what to do about it. Question 2. When did you first realize you might have dissociative identity? It was probably end of 2019. I was struggling heavily with depression, loneliness, and the occasional suicidal thought. I just started a new job a few months prior, and work was going great. But I kept feeling this weight on my mind that physically felt like it was weighing on my shoulders. I found a psychiatrist randomly and stopped by. It was not planned at all, and in retrospect, I'm not really sure why I ended up there. After she told me what DID was, she told me simply to find a way to let my alter grow, as a lot of what I was feeling was probably due to the alter being repressed, but started to bubble up to the surface anyway.
It wouldn't be until March or April of 2020 that we did anything about it though naturally. Pirko had played VRChat a few times before and always considered making his own avatar, but never got up the motivation to actually do it. He didn't really play VRChat enough to make it worthwhile. After he got a VR headset, he finally got up the motivation to start trying to make one.
I didn't end up making one for me, though, is the funny part. I went in planning to find or make an avatar like this one, but stumbled upon the base for her avatar or on some back forum somewhere and downloaded it. I still don't really know why. I can only assume it was her influencing me early on. I made the early version of what you see now and uploaded it.
The night he uploaded it was my first night in VR. As soon as he loaded into the game, I remember taking over. I've been out a lot since then, but that was the hardest full dive I think I've ever had. Everything felt so real. It was like I was actually in this world. That first night was very important to me, as it's where I met my best friend and picked my name. Question 3. Have you had difficulty telling people about your dissociative identity? Are you kidding? It used to be terrifying. Well, for both of us in a way. For me, it was initially really hard to talk about. It invalidated me as a person if people knew about Pirko. They'd treat me different, think I wasn't real, or somehow be bothered by it. My first few nights, I refused to acknowledge it. I tried to pretend like I was my own person, and refused to admit what was really going on. I almost lost my best friend due to lying to him, but guilt made me fess up.
Yeah, gotta admit, LA was a bit of an insecurity for a long time for me. I barely told anyone I knew for a long time. Most of my best friends didn't know for a while. I think I told only 2 people in my life for the first 6 months. I slowly started to open up to friends and was surprised at how few of them thought it was weird. Question 4. How does DID impact your day-to-day? Do you avoid certain activities because of it? Daily living is really not that different. In some ways, I'd say it has its perks, if anything. I know when Alea's co-fronting because there's this thing she noticed that I never really would. There's been times when driving long distance or late at night that I start to get really tired and afraid I'll fall asleep at the wheel. Instead, I'll swap out with Alea and let her drive. She usually has a lot more energy than I do at that point.
Yep, been a few times I've done that. The hard part is if someone starts talking to me, because for one, it picks up Perko, which sort of uproots me, and secondly, you know how hard it is to focus when you start talking and it doesn't sound like your voice? I feel like Yzma from Emperor's New Groove when she turns into a cat.
Looking for this. Is that my voice? Is that my voice? Oh well.
Question 5. How did Alea get her name? Okay, I've been in text-based roleplay world since I got internet. I've always wanted to write a book, and it's the closest I've really actually gotten. For any of that sort of thing, you always need some original characters to roleplay as. Alea was not one of my main characters by far. Originally, she was just a side character I made to have a unique character for a short story I was doing with a friend who already knew the names of most of my characters, so I had to come up with something new. That story ended up not lasting that long, and I kind of forgot about it when this Alea came along.
Don't ask me why I liked it. I generally don't know. That first night in VR, I remember introducing myself as that. I think it just sounded nice.
Question 6. When Alea's avatar was created, which of you made it? I feel like it had to have been her, although technically she hadn't started fronting yet. I remember downloading the base and playing with the model in Unity for a while, and that's about it. Looking back, I remember the feeling of her fronting, but without the signature sort of bounce she has when she comes forward. It's like being around a very excited teenage girl, just all bouncy.
Well, I don't really remember it either. It is, interesting. I know I had a say in it, as there's parts of the design that are definitely not Perko style. But I really don't remember voicing anything about that far back. Question 7. How did you guys come up with the design of Alea's avatar? I really wish I could answer this. In a way, I think it was inspired by my namesake, which may be why I chose it. I don't know. If the choice of name came first, or inspiration to design, who will ever know? However, the character from which I get my name turns into foxes at night, which is due to a curse, which is very appropriate to how I started. Perko turns into a fox girl at night due to what seemed like a curse, but turned out to be a great blessing.
Question 8. Do you hear two voices in your head at all times, or do you only hear the voice of the one that's currently fronting? This is an interesting question, and rather hard to describe. I never hear both of us at the same time. Like, it's not like two people talking at once. You know how when you read something in your head, and you mentally hear it with your voice? Imagine reading something in your voice, and then a while later you read something else in a girl's voice. Sometimes it changes mid-sentence. It's how I usually know when Alea is co-fronting, as when she comes forward, I notice I hear things in her voice.
The same is really true for me, though. When I'm fronting, I almost never hear Perko's voice. Mostly because he mentally sleeps when I'm out. Sometimes I'll go a bit too far and do or say something I'm not supposed to, and I'll bravely think, this isn't a good idea. But those words are in his voice. Kind of a weird reminder, trying to get me to stop.
Question 9. How often do you switch? And is switching something that you do voluntarily or involuntarily? All the time, really. It's usually involuntary, but as I've said, sometimes I do it on purpose. Most of the time, Alea is just co-fronting, where I feel or think like her for brief moments, like having a backseat driver telling you where to turn. I can always say no, but most of the time you do it anyway and don't really question it until afterwards.
We do have dedicated times, though, where he lets me out. He puts on the VR headset and just lets go. Like, I'm clipping a leash on a dog in the backyard. I know how far I can go, but otherwise have pretty much free reign. I have taken over by accident once or twice when he's distracted, usually at work or something, and it's almost always hilarious.
I guess it's good for my masculinity, as I've suddenly gotten comfortable enough with myself that Doesn't really faze me when I do something silly and girly around others who have no idea. And I'm quirky enough that they just go, yeah, that's Pirko. Question 10. When you switch, do you remember what the other person did while they were in front? Sometimes. I get bits and pieces of her life. If I see a picture or a video, I kind of remember what happened, but it's like remembering a dream most of the time.
I think I remember most of his life. Although, sometimes I feel like his life is a blur. I think the difference is that I'm always kind of in the corner during his life, but he lets me have free reign when it's my turn, and then he just kind of goes to sleep. Question 11. When you're not in front, are you able to watch what the person that is in front is doing? Sort of like a movie? Yes, but not like a movie. It's more like a car ride where I can grab the wheel at any time, but more just sit behind and give suggestions. Like, could I take over? Probably. For a moment. But I'd also get muds in trouble. So, instead I just sort of sit in the back and point at things. Like, oh, squirrel.
Question 12. How does it feel to switch? So, the best way I can explain this is like, it starts by sort of surrendering control a bit. Like, that's how I trigger it. But then I feel like this, like, lightness. Like, it just shrunk and lost, like, 50 pounds. And then I'm her. And she slowly starts doing her thing. The few times she starts taking control during my life is similar. I feel kind of lighter, and I think my voice changes. She says or does what she wants, and then I'm back to being me. Outside of VR, she doesn't really like using my body, so it's not something I deal with a lot.
Question 13. Do you have any other alters? Is it just Pirko or Analea? Yep, just the two of us.
Thank goodness. I don't think I could handle any more than just one. Question 14. How do people close to you, like your parents, Pirko's wife, feel about your DID? My parents still don't know, actually. It's not something I felt comfortable enough to tell them. My wife is pretty chill about it, however. She's got a psychology degree, so she actually understands some of this better than I do. I think most of my friends and such who I've told really didn't seem to care that much about it. Like, breaking the news was hard for all of them, and they just go, oh, really? That's nice. Like, what? Why am I more freaked out about this than anyone else? Leia, what are you doing?
I gotta get changed.
Why?
Because the other outfit I'd worn too much.
I don't understand why.
Look, after a certain amount of time, you gotta try something new.
Why? You've been wearing that fine.
Look, you wouldn't understand, okay?
I wouldn't understand. That doesn't make any sense. You're part of me. What?
You don't make sense.
Would you hurry up? At the very least?
I'm almost done.
We're recording right now and you gotta change.
Look, you wouldn't understand, okay?
You're ridiculous. Can you hurry up?
Like I said, you wouldn't understand. Sometimes you just gotta change outfits. Just how these sort of things work, okay?
Sure they do.
See, now I look okay. Now I look cool.
Yeah, sure you do. Yep. Fluffy tail, I get it. Okay.
Yeah, I think this looks good, don't you?
No.
Your opinion doesn't matter.
Okay. Alright, getting back to this. Question 15. Do you have different preferences in people as friends?
I think I'm more picky, in a way. I'm drawn to people who seem very accepting, especially if I can tell they have problems of their own, and would likely relate somehow.
I've said before that I'll be friends with anyone, but not everyone is my friend. I get along with just about everyone and will buddy up with people even if I don't really like them, which works great in a business environment as you don't really get to pick your coworkers. Question 16. Do Alea and Pirko have the same sexual/romantic interests? Absolutely not. Definitely no overlap at all. My usual response to this is that we're opposite genders, but very straight.
It's funny being the backseat voice when he checks out other girls. It's like catching a brother looking at someone up and down, like, bro, she's like a 5. Where are your standards?
But likewise, I'll sometimes wake up, I guess, when she's all flirty and stuff and just be like, what are you staring at? Is that avatar really that attractive?
Yes. Yes, it is. Question 17. Do you have different preferences in foods and smells? Considering I really don't front that often outside of VR, I can't really say that I eat that much myself. Although, if I had to find something, I think I'd be more drawn to cheese.
And she also likes alcohol a bit too much.
Yeah. Question 18. Are there ever arguments between the two of you? No?
Yeah. Question 19. How did the two of you manage your time? It's not easy, especially with all the changes in my life currently. I try to give her a bit of time every weekend and evening. It's not always easy, but she's patient most of the time. Alright, question 20. This is a long one too, so be ready. Basically, do you feel like you two have separate consciousnesses? Is it like you're one stream of consciousness that sometimes experiences things as Alea and other times experiences things as Pirko? Or is it like 2 points of view going on at once? This is actually a very accurate question, and it's kind of both at the same time. I'd say most of the time it's one stream that swaps color filters between me and her. Both sometimes, usually at the most mundane times. We each see things from our own point of view at the same time.
It doesn't happen often, but when it does, I feel like we're growing closer. It's a surreal moment where we both say something that triggers both of us just right to both think about it separately. Then we instantly reflect on what the other person thought, and which changes what we originally thought and quickly bounce off each other's viewpoint. When this happens, though, we're usually really distracted, and almost drop out of the real world briefly, just because there's just so much going on in our head. Most other times, however, there's not quite enough brain power for us to both think about things at the same time. I might remember experiences as him, but not really think about it, and as such, there's a disconnect with most of his memories. Some of his memories I don't really remember at all. It just kind of depends on where I'm at. Question 21. What is the most annoying question / thing people ask or do because of your DID? What's wrong with your voice? Are you using a voice mod? Oh.
People ask if I'm listening, and sometimes I can't reply, because I have to figure out which of us is fronting. After 2 years, DID has become so normal to me that I sometimes don't recognize the difference between her fronting or me fronting. And I have to pause and double check. Especially if someone doesn't know I have DID, this can be very frustrating. Question 22. What are some common misconceptions people have of DID? Honestly, I think I had more misconceptions than anyone I've met. When I was told what DID was and that I had it, I was a bit horrified. I didn't really know what to think.
I think the worst misconception is unfortunately not always a misconception. That, oh, it's all in your head, or oh, you're faking it. In a way, that's the most toxic thing you can say to someone with DID. Denying someone is who they feel they are only pushes them further to it, as they feel the need to justify how they feel. Nobody angry was ever told, oh, I don't think you're angry, and just went, oh, jolly, oh, good job, yeah, quite right, I seem to have been miffed up on the bonnet. Yeah, thanks. And nobody just walked off cured like that. That's not how that works. But unfortunately, so many people use DID or issues like this as an excuse. Even if they aren't lying about having DID, they hide behind it so much they use it as an excuse to avoid the real world. DID can be controlled, and while I very much realize we have it real good with how our relationship is, there's so much that can be gained from DID if you stop treating it like a problem, and challenge yourself to make it an advantage.
Question 23. How do you feel about representation in media? Mr. Robot, Split, I know how some D had an episode on it, etc. Of those options, I've only seen parts of Split. Honestly, that movie freaked me out so much about DID, as I was seeing clips of the movie around the time I was diagnosed. I forget if it had released yet or not by then, or just the trailers, but the plot of that movie made me worried about how people would think of me if they knew that I had DID.
Most of the representation we have seen is largely negative, however, which isn't good for people with this condition. I definitely don't think it helped Perko's early self-confidence. A lot of the symptoms are exaggerated by Hollywood. One thing that is decently well done is how seamlessly two very different personalities can slide from one to another, and how sometimes they aren't even aware of what's happening.
Alright, question 24. For Alea, how does dysphoria affect you? How has VRChat helped you?
For me, dysphoria is hearing Perko's voice, or seeing what I look like in the physical world. It's confusing and almost protectively shuts me off. The more aware of my real body I am, the less I front, really. It makes me very uncomfortable. In VRChat, however, I can look at my hands, I can see nail polish, I can look down and see cleavage and hips. When I talk, I have a voice modifier that plays back my voice into the headset, so I can hear how I sound now. My brain fills in the rest with phantom sense. My phantom sense becomes so strongly connected to my virtual avatar, I know what I'm wearing. I've swapped outfits from this jacket to sleeveless and felt colder. In VR. Like, isn't that weird? I can feel where my avatar's bra makes my shoulders itchy.
Yeah, that's potentially TMI. Question 25. How does your system work? There's the host, me, but other people in the system sometimes have their own roles that help the host or the system itself, like the protector, a gatekeeper, littles, fragments.
It's pretty much just us. I can't really think of any real roles we would fit in. Yeah, Perko's the host, and sometimes I act as a protector of sorts for him, but really he protects me just as much. We're just like brother and sister, just trapped in the same body most of the time.
Question 26. What triggered your DID? What's the straw that broke the camel's back? This is a very hard question to answer. I struggled with depression a lot as a kid. I always felt like I stuck out like a sore thumb and wanted to fit in. I feel like Alea is the manifestation of wanting to fit in with the girls on the playground. It was too hard to make friends as a lonely boy, and somehow Alea was a dream of being able to just make friends with anyone. She took a long time to manifest. I was in my 20s when she finally came forward, though I should have known she was coming for a while, as I was constantly making female characters in both roleplays and video games.
Loneliness can sting pretty deep as a kid. While I never fronted as a kid, I feel like I remember being around when Perko was like age 9 through like 12 or 13. I had disappeared for most of his teen life and just came back out of nowhere. I don't even think anything really triggered me. Sometimes things can just stay bottled up for too long.
Truthfully, I don't really remember what fully triggered DID. I feel like I suppressed it so far I don't remember. Question 27. What benefits have you noticed from DID? I can depend on her pretty easily. I mentioned earlier that I can swap with her when I get too tired, but she also has a big impact on my emotions. If she hasn't fronted enough, I start feeling very aggressive or depressed. Letting her out and front more calms me down a lot. I can tell when she's not been around by how I feel. Question 28. Which one of you is nicer? She is, by far. I have no problem being rude. She'd rather keep her mouth shut than hurt someone's feelings. Most of the time.
I can be a bitch, don't get confused. I just like making friends too much. Question 29. If you could change one thing about the other, what would it be? I wish he wasn't so hard on himself. You know how hard it is to try and make someone happy when everything they do isn't good enough? It's dang frustrating to try and get this guy to lighten up. There's being your own critic, and then there's just being an asshole to yourself.
I sometimes wish she was more careful. She's so quick to hang out and have fun with friends and stuff that she gets carried away and has gotten flat out drunk without a second thought. I don't usually have an issue with what she does in VR, but when I gotta wake up with a hangover, she's gone a little bit too far. Question 30. What is the hardest part of having DID? Time management, perception, focus. It's hard to say what's worse. I never have time to give Alea the time she really deserves. The perception of myself is also hard to overcome sometimes. The biggest problem day to day, though, is focusing through the distraction. It's bad enough trying to stay focused when I can be easily distracted myself, but when you have a second mind in your head with ADHD...
Hey,
What? You get distracted by your own ears. You can't even see them half the time.
no, yeah, that's true. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, I may be willing to try and do another one later on. I'm sorry how long this one took to make. I know I kind of announced it like a couple months ago, but like with everything that's been going on in like our personal life and everything, it's been very difficult to try and like make a video as like dedicated as this. It takes a lot of time, and I kind of have to be like very alone to do it, which has not really been a thing lately. And the last factor is that as you might understand, it takes a lot of focus to like be able to like swap back and forth and have a conversation with yourself, recording yourself, talking to yourself. Like, I don't know how much sense that made, but like you can understand that this has been a very challenging video to make. And I appreciate the patience of everyone who's knew that I was working on this video and like wasn't like constantly asking like, where is it? Where is it? How is it? Like, what are you doing? Is it coming? You forgot about us? Are you not answering questions anymore? Like, what's going on? Yeah, I know it took a long time, and I really appreciate everyone who did offer questions and you know, just the support I've gotten. It's been very nice. I appreciate it. So, yeah, I'm not very good at outros, so, thanks everyone. Bye.